to the Varside Spurs pubcast. And tonight we're in the Varside Arms having a quick drink with Simon. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, bit of a weird, quiet, non-Premier League week, wasn't
it? Yeah, and some might say that's good. We needed a bit of a break.
Yeah, something to be said for
that. But sorry, the dog's just intruding. But yeah, it's always weird on international breaks, trying to kind of work out what the bloody hell is going on.
Yeah.
Are we enjoying it? Are we not? I don't know. When are we back? I can't remember.
I lose all kind of sense of time, actually. I don't know what the days are, and it's
a bit like the period between Christmas and New Year.
It is a bit, isn't it? Yeah, you're absolutely right. No one really knows what the days are. Or
I was just going to say that's your age, but
Yeah. Well, it will be that.
Simon was being much more polite.
Yeah. No, that's true. Actually, that is actually the case all year round for me. But there we are. We're also joined by Lee. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm not so fussed by the international break. It always it seems to be the harbinger of bad news for us.
Can be. Although I saw that Lo Celso got man of the match. Was it the other night for Argentina? So
really good.
But I also saw that them be playing the Friday before the Newcastle game, so it's exceptionally unlikely they'll be available until the week after.
Yeah, who organises these shit shows? I mean, why are you having an international game 2 days before you're going to fly back 5,000 miles to the UK?
I blame Daniel Levy. It's got to be him, surely.
I think it probably should be an ENIC out situation. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So obviously nothing's happened this week in football, has it? We haven't really, apart from the internationals, which were meh.
It's been very quiet.
Very quiet. Nothing's happened at all, really. No kind of large murderous country has got involved with football at all. So, does anybody have any views on large murderous countries not being involved in football?
Going to try and sort of be politic on this one, because otherwise I find myself chopped up in a suitcase somewhere.
That's right. Yeah.
So I listen. It's a tough one, isn't it? Really, about the Newcastle situation, because I think that you can see from their point of view that maybe they think, at last, we're going to be headed to the promised land. They haven't won a trophy for such a long time that they make Spurs look like serial winners. And I think being able to transform their club in probably a short space of time, that I'm sure they're looking forward to. A number of fans would be, but a lot of ethics get dropped at that point, don't they? And I'm amazed, really. I mean, I can understand why their fans are cock a hoop over it, because it really is going to transform the landscape for them long term, and maybe even short term. But how on earth the Premier League passed this, I've absolutely zero idea. Their record on human rights and against women and the LGBTQ community is absolutely shocking. And how did this ever get through? I don't know.
I think it's probably the easiest answer to all of these things is it was always going to. It's how much they had to obfuscate in order to make it happen, which I think is what the last year has been about, because we know that they approached Newcastle. I think it was this has sort of been bubbling along in the background.
I think it's 4 years, isn't it?
4 years. and it's. I think a lot of it come down to how they've constructed the deal and the governance around the involvement of the PIF, the Public Investment Fund, and in order to make it as, I suppose, how much Vaseline can they shove on the lens to make it as plausible as possible, is what it's come down to.
Yeah, which kind of
everyone sees through that. So what's the point?
Well, they kind of see through it, because the prince is actually the chairman of the fund.
Well, no, that's my point.
You
But
know,
that's my point.
it's bizarre, isn't it? That when Staveley was being interviewed, I think it was by the Times, she was basically trying to put distance between the fund and Saudi Arabia, which is ridiculous.
You can't do.
It's a sovereign wealth fund. I mean, it is what they are.
I mean, if I can row back a little bit on one of those comments where I said I've no idea how it got through, I do have an idea. £1 billion, and that was given to the Premier League and various other people to smooth over the deal because of their piracy issues. That they've,
that's right.
So
yes.
Basically, it's kind of it's meant
the TV rights element.
Yeah. With beIN, wasn't it?
beIN
Sports in, was it Qatar?
Exactly. Oh, don't worry, we'll massively overpay. Exactly, we'll massively overpay for some TV rights, and that's how we'll get around it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly my point.
Mm.
And there's been a lot of stuff that I've read on the socials, certainly around how the Newcastle fans have reacted, how the Newcastle LGBT supporters group has positioned themselves. I mean, they're just in a horrible situation.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people don't necessarily agree. They are in a horrible situation because I tried to put myself in that position, which had it been us, for example, you may well be extremely unhappy, but at the same time, you also want to try and build some form of relationship and not throw the baby out with the bathwater. So what do you do? I just wouldn't envy them because I think it's just a horrendous situation, which for all sorts of fans have been massively conflicted, and had conversations with other people that I know and said, well, so what would you do then? Would you just would you tear up your season ticket and just go and support what the ones who actually do play in the White Hart Lane at the New River, where I can't remember what they're called now,
Haringey.
Haringey, whatever they're called, and it's like, well, God, I don't know. I there's some real ethically challenged. That's not the right word. There are some people who are really challenged by the ethics on this, and I think would make some real decisions, which kind of almost brings us back to all the other conversations we've ever had about the Levy Out Brigade, which is, and especially some of the things that we've seen with regards to the non-football stuff that we do as a club.
Yeah.
I kind of go, do you see now? Do you understand why?
Yeah.
Because when, if KSA and come in and say, here's 300 or 400 million for 80% of the club, and everyone just shrugs their shoulders and accepts it, at least we've got a guy who's trying to do it a different way.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, the ENIC outlot, their stance is that we don't win trophies and Levy doesn't run the club very well, which is totally different, of course, to someone with completely, all the human rights issues, everything that you read up on Saudi Arabia at so many different levels is wrong. And for them to take over a Premier League club, it's interesting, what you were saying earlier, where obviously this amount of money that's going to be invested is going to change the landscape of the Premier League. But I think probably the thing that people aren't realizing is that it's so damaging. This is going to be so damaging. Okay, Newcastle might win the league, they might win a few cups, but this is going to be damaging in several ways because, one, it's going to increase the money in the game again, which is just going to absorb it like a sponge. And the other thing is that I think what we're going to see is the top six being very wary of this. And I know Daniel Levy, apparently he was heading up the other 19 to fight against this takeover happening. I can see the top six moving towards the European Super League a lot sooner than they probably were going to.
Well, it's interesting. This rears its head again because, of course, you've got some people who are saying, "Oh, Dan, you don't really like it when another club outmaneuvers you or doesn't disclose something."
No, I don't think he does.
No, but then it kind of brings back around the conversation that we had about the Super League, which was okay. The top six clubs going and doing something, and that got put in the bin, and now you've got something else which is outmaneuvering it, and potentially outmaneuvering us, and potentially Arsenal, because all of a sudden there's a however big you thought Chelsea and City were, there's a bigger boy in town.
Yeah, yeah.
But let's face it, right? I mean, the ESL is one thing, and for whatever you think on that, it isn't about what this is about, which is for them whitewashing their brand, which is the terrible background of what has happened in Saudi Arabia over the years. It's a cheap way of
PR,
of PR, because if you buy a club like Spurs, you're looking at like 2.5-3 billion, whatever it is, but they've allegedly bought that club for like 300-400 million, and even if they spent $1 billion on it, it would be cheaper than buying a club like Spurs. So for them, it's a fairly cost-effective way of raising their profile and also whitewashing their image.
Yeah,
I do have heard that, and a lot of people have kind of been using the term sports washing, etc. But I still struggle with the fact that it's a very dark paint to paint over, and I'm just not sure it's that simple. I do get the fact that a lot of people go, hooray, we're just going to get loads of money spent, and is it genuinely going to make people think differently about Saudi Arabia? They might be ignorant to it, but are people really going to say, oh, terrible human rights record, but they're all right now because now they've bought a Prem club? I just don't know. I think ignorance rather than positive PR. But maybe I don't know, maybe I'm just missing something. I just think a lot of people will see through it, but they just might not care, which I think is probably worse.
Because I think on a daily basis people just get on with their lives, and if it doesn't affect them, then they're all right, Jack. It doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah. So sort of the complacency, I think, is sort of there anyway, and
what is in
and
it
that sort
them?
of makes it worse, I suppose. But I'm not sure the two are the same.
What's in it for them, though? I don't get.
What's in it for Newcastle?
Well, not Newcastle. What's in it for this PIF?
So, it's PR, isn't it? It enables them to build in the same way that Abu Dhabi have done with City. It's enabled them to build an image that they. I mean, I'm not saying it will. It's just in their eyes. Don't forget.
But that's my point.
In their eyes,
and a cheap way of doing it.
They're nothing to do. They have nothing of interest in football whatsoever.
No.
So I don't think they're analysing it the same way that we are. They're just seeing the Premier League as one big market that stretches worldwide, and it enables them to have people to have a different view of their country. Whether that happens or not, as Simon says, is incredibly.
Yeah, is their perception of of what they think it will do for them, rather than what it will actually do for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which I somewhat get actually as a thing, which is obviously when you've got 300 billion or whatever the number is that the fund is worth.
Yeah,
you'll have a go at anything probably, and
exactly
spending going to your point, spending 300 or 400 million now and probably another billion over the next couple of years is at worst just a fun thing to do.
Well, that's right.
They might change opinion,
and they might do some redevelopment, regeneration in Newcastle, a bit like City have in Manchester.
See, that's where I think it gets more dangerous, because then it's about actual asset and about actual ownership of local
communities,
communities and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think and that to that point, I think there I can see it's like it's not just owning the club and pumping some money to buy some players. It's then about the long game, the hearts and minds, which is, oh, but they built us this new school, and oh, but they built us this fantastic leisure centre. It's the kind of the subvertive mind changing over a sustained period of time.
Yeah, I know it's
that I can see. That I can see a much longer game than just buying a club.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you look at City with Sheikh Man